Welcome to the Mount Vernon City School District July 26th meeting. Yes. Can you take roll call? Can we all stand for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trustee Williams? Here. Trustee Russo? Here. Trustee Torres?
Here.
Trustee Zamora? Trustee McOwen? Trustee Ying? Trustee Jaros?
Here.
Trustee White?
Present.
Trustee Saunders?
Here. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to go into executive session. We're going to go to executive session for 20 minutes, and when we come back, we'll do communications from the public. No, I'm sorry, we'll do we're going to do the president's report, and then we're going to do communications from the public. Motion?
What purpose? The Board of Education is adjourned to an executive session for the purpose of discussing matters leading to the possible acquisition of land.
20 minutes.
Motion.
Second.
Trustee White, is it?
Yes.
All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
Number of James we anticipated, we're going to start here. Get started. We're going to move right on to the agenda. The superintendent does not have a report today.
Huh? That's not the only thing? Glenn?
Motion to reconvene.
Motion. Trustee McMillan?
Second.
Ms. White?
I got it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Again, my apologies for taking a little extra time in executive session.
What about the
The
file?
superintendent does not have a report this evening, so we're going to go right to the president's report. And Mr. Silver's going to present.
So what you see in front of you, board members, you have to come down here if you want to see this.
This wasn't uploaded on Word doc? Rick, was this uploaded on Word doc? Board members, if you want to view it from your computer, you'll be able to do that on Word doc.
So it's going to be up on the website?
Word docs, just you don't have your thingy.
So what you see is part of a graph. We could not, with this technology here, have all the parts of the graph. So we're just showing the graph rather than the words that are on the top of the graph. So if we were to move this up, we would see that in the very first line, in the very first box where you see that red line all the way up on the left-hand
Mr.
side.
Silver,
Yes.
can you just go back and give us an introduction as to what you are presenting specifically?
Sure. What we've done is we've divided the bond into parts, major categories, and what we are showing you here in three bar graphs for each category is where it started, where it was on the repurpose vote this past March, and where it is today. So the first one is building repairs. That's that red line that goes all the way up to the top. When we first started this bond, the building repairs was supposed to be $49.5 million. When we repurposed or re-voted on the bond, that became 0, and it's 0 today. The repairs that we have to make from this $49.5 million will be reconstructed and paid for out of this year's budget and next year's budget on a priority basis. And we have already met with our construction manager and tried to determine what we need to do this year for life safety purposes. The second category is new construction. There are three bar graphs there: a small red one, a large purple one, and a large green one with yellow cross thatching. The one on the left, the red one, is where we started at Pennington, which was $6.8 million was the original bond vote on Pennington. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, remind me, what is the whole column again? Which category?
That's new construction. It's the second category. So originally it was just Pennington, then it became Pennington, Grimes, why am I stuck on this? Parker, and well, Mandela is under renovation.
Okay.
So, well, Mandela is also part of the new construction, but it's part of renovation. That totality became $54 million, including Parker, which is in this part at $10 million. So originally, there was only the Pennington edition, and in this $54 million is the Parker edition as well. The cross-thatch in yellow is what has been committed in dollars to date, and that is the Pennington construction, Thornton's separate. The Pennington construction and, well, Grimes is not done yet, Mandela's not done yet, and Thornton construction. So we have a very small part of it is actually committed. The committed is,
It's just hard to see.
it's hard to see,
What's
yep.
the number?
But I can't even see it. Well, I can't see it here. So it's $18 million. $18 million is committed right now out of the $54 million. So that means that's bids that the board has accepted for construction.
And this is going to be up on the website, people can look at it, right?
Yes, it will be. And we will be talking about another, the board will be asked to vote on bids tonight on the Thornton project, which was approved by the state late this morning.
Oh, great.
The third category is pre-K classrooms. That's pretty much the same thing. We're estimating that it's $120,000 per building times 7 buildings is $840,000. That's pretty much the way it always was. The next category is science rooms. That's pretty much always the way it was. We're figuring now $600,000 a classroom, $600,000 a building, times seven buildings. All the buildings don't need it because some of the buildings are under construction. Graham School already has the science room finished, and so it's only 7 buildings that need it going forward. The next is IT, where you see the flat line, red, purple, and green going across. That was always the same $8 million from the bond. That never changed. The next category is renovations, which also hasn't changed much as we're planning the renovations as they originally were. Originally, it called for $25 million for Davis. That was reduced to $2.5 million. And then we have Thornton. Mount Vernon High School was reduced. And we added to the renovations at Mandela, which was originally not part of the bond at all. And the next is the fields. Originally,
Wait, but then,
yes, sir.
But then you have a bunch committed already for renovations, right?
Yes, we
Most
do.
of that's committed
We do, and there'll be more committed after tonight. The next category is the fields, which went from originally $4.5 million up to $10.5 million. In the refined budget vote, it ended up back around $4.5 million. When I finish this, I'm going to tell you a little bit about a field project that we want the board to know about at Mount Vernon High School. The next category is land purchase. Originally, there was no land purchase, so you can see in the red column there's nothing there. That's the next to last box. There was nothing there originally, and then it went to $6 million, and now it's down to about $4 million, but we're uncertain what we're doing, and so that category is not fixed yet. The next is site improvements, where originally there was only site improvements for Graham School And then with all of the other work that's being done at the renovations of the schools, it required site improvements in a number of locations. Can I speak to the fields briefly? Yes? Okay. So the construction committee this morning met to discuss the fields at the high school. We've determined that the tennis courts and the track as they exist now are unsafe and they are closed for the moment. So a project is being planned which will include putting sod on the football field and fixing the sprinkler system on the football field at the high school. That will be ready after the first week in September. This plan also calls for stripping the surface off the track right now, and under that surface is asphalt. Fixing the asphalt at the same time as redoing the entire tennis court complex with new asphalt. Then in the spring, we resurface the track, we finish the track, and we reorient the baseball field, football field, and we are also talking about a running track.
Not the football field, soccer.
We reorient the baseball field, the softball field, and we are talking about, if we have enough money, about putting a mile-long cross-country path around the perimeter of the high school fields. That is slated right now $3.2 million. And we don't know how far to get, but we will be redoing the football field with sod and redoing the track completely and redoing the tennis courts completely. Okay.
Okay, that's it?
Exactly.
Yes.
That
Yes.
concludes my presentation.
Good evening. The Board of Education recognizes the critical importance of community discourse and involvement in the education of Mount Vernon's children. And accordingly, members of the public are invited to speak at each regularly scheduled board meeting, subject to the terms of board policy. Speakers must register in advance by no later than 4 p.m. the date of the meeting by contacting the district clerk in person at 165 North Columbus Avenue, by phone at 914-665-5235, or via email at rmccormick@mtvernon.csd.org. The board welcomes all respectful comment, whether praise or criticism. However, identifying and criticizing a specific student, parent, teacher, administrator, or other Mount Vernon education official or employee is strictly prohibited. Any such complaint must be presented and addressed through the proper administrative channels. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to speak, with up to 1 additional minute that may be used for the speaker to conclude or summarize their remarks. If appropriate, board trustees and/or the superintendent or other staff members at the direction of the superintendent may respond to the speaker's remarks. Our first speaker this evening is Bishop Edwards.
Madam President, and to our superintendent and to the members of the board, first of all, I want to congratulate the new board members that are here. We hope that you all do a wonderful job. I come to this podium, first of all, to commend our board and the superintendent for such a wonderful job that they're doing in terms of charting the vision for University pre-K programs. Just recently, June 23rd, we honored our superintendent, Dr. Hamilton, our Director of Improvement of Schools, Dr. Conroy, as well as Dr. White, for their extraordinary service that they provided. Beginning February 27, this board approved a resolution to be in partnership with Friendship for Tots. Friendship Tots is an early childhood educational center in which you all allowed many 54 children of our community to come to our facility with a collaboration of your professional services and helping us to navigate with the wonderful, competent teachers that we have. And for this past 6 months, they have been there. This summer, we have 45 of those 54 students still there in our facility, because during the summertime, many of the students regress. But this was the vision of our superintendent to continue on. And we presented them with a plaque and appreciation for their vision and for their effort. Our prayers go out to Dr. Ben Conroy, who have some health challenges. She has been and continue to be a tremendous asset to the life of our community in educational improvement, as well as Ms. Gail, Sister Gail White, Dr. Gail White, and so we want to thank you. That being said, we pray that this board will continue the improvement and the advancement of our children. I've been in this community for the last 28 years, pastor the Friendship Worship Center on 9th Avenue. We came to the North Side 19 years ago. We were born in the South Side. 90% of our members are from the South Side, and we've always concerned about economic equity, educational equity among our children. I live in Pennington District, and I'm not against Pennington. I want Pennington, my children went to Pennington, and I want Pennington to get the best that they can get and whatever they need, but also I want kids in Parker School and Grimes School. You've done a great, tremendous job at Graham School. I want to celebrate you for it looks wonderful. When I came to this community, that was a blighted area, drugs and guns, but you have uplifted that area, and I'm proud to ride by that area. And also, you've done a great job at another school where I saw at Parker the other day. At Parker, you've done a great job there. No, at Parker, yeah, they put a new basketball for the kids. They had to renovate the basketball.
Yeah,
Huh?
that was 3 years ago. Yeah.
Well, okay, I just took notice of it. So I'm saying, when you do good, I want to come back, and the community want to come back to say that you're doing good. But also, please be mindful that when you spend these dollars that we have entrusted with you, make sure that there is equity among all of our children. We cannot focus on one side of Mount Vernon. We have one community. I don't know where to get this south side, north side. I service one community, and I hope that you continue that path. And to the new trustees, we're not here to fight you. We want to work together with you. Our community-based organization want to partner with you to lift our community, and that's the only way it's going to work. And we have great hope in you, President Adrian. You've been here before. You lived in our community. You know our community. You know where the dead bodies are. You know where the issues are. So we look for you to navigate us. And thank you, Dr. Hamilton, for your leadership. God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop
Thank you,
Evans.
sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Matthew O'Keefe. O'Keefe.
Hi, my name is Matt O'Keefe, and for those who don't know me, I'm a district representative for State Senator Jeff Klein. First, Senator Klein wanted to thank the board and Dr. Hamilton for working this past session in the past few months on implementing a few new programs to this school district, including Afro-Latin Jazz, where at the high school, Dr. Hamilton, we had the whole room dancing. The greenhouse, $100,000 to refurbish it. We've worked with Ken Silver and to get that project off the ground as well. And then, of course, the Pennington School playgrounds and the field. So he wanted to let me know also that if you guys have any other projects or ideas for the school district, to come forward and present a plan. You know, if our schools are Mount Vernon High School and Pennington School. So if you have any ideas or any plans, please come to my office, call me or come to our office, and we'll be happy to sit down and speak with you guys. And then, other than that, just, you know, again, thank you very much, and we look forward to following up on these projects, including the Pennington Fields. I know there's going to be a discussion later regarding it. And any questions, again, call our office. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Matt, can I just ask you one question before
Yes.
you leave the podium? I know we've been having discussions regarding the MCA, which is the maximum cost allowance that Senator Klein presented in the Senate.
Yes.
And Assembly Pretlow presented in the Assembly. So I know we had some correspondence. Could you speak to that a little bit in terms of where we're at? Because a lot of our projects, a few of the major ones, are dependent on the MCA allowance. If we don't have the proper MCA allowance, we can't spend 100% reimbursable funds by the State Education Department. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, and I reached out to our team again. I emailed you, and that's kind of the latest update, but just for everybody else. We are putting together a package, and I know our policy team is working with the school district on a package about how this legislation will affect Mount Vernon and how important it is. And then we'll take feedback from the community as well, letters of support, and perhaps a letter of support from the board. I'll check with the policy team to send to the governor to let him know how important this legislation is, as you mentioned.
Now, I understand the governor has till December to sign all the bills that were passed, but this is time of the essence as it regards to our projects. We need to know as soon as possible. What would you recommend that we do besides the letters of support from community organizations and members and what you're doing? What would you recommend to expedite this process so that we can have an answer, let's say, within the next 30 days?
Let me follow up with that, Leslie. I'll definitely follow up with you and the board within this next week about what we can do. And again, I know our policy team is working with the school district on first coming up with that kind of a package, I guess, of how this how this affects the school district, and then I'll follow up about what specifically the board can do, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Can I just?
I'll just shout. Do you have a form letter for a letter of support from boards or example that we can crib off of? 'Cause
I can look at that.
We can
And,
get on the policy committee. Let's get that going.
yeah. Okay. Absolutely.
We need this.
Yeah. I will follow up.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jasmine Asari? Asari, I'm sorry.
Forgive me, I'm going to read my statement. I just wanted to say good evening to everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to address the school board, community, and parents in attendance. As you said, my name is Jasmine Asari, and I'm a mother of 2 sons at Pennington Elementary. I'm here to address the letter that was sent by the new school board president addressing the recent changes to the 2020 vision for Mount Vernon schools. These changes and cuts dramatically impact 4 schools, which means all of our children within the Mount Vernon school district. But I'm here to talk specifically about Pennington as it significantly impacts our school, as 2 of the 5 changes were to Pennington, specifically the Pennington Fields and the land purchase. I am deeply disappointed that what was promised to us within the campaign to approve the 2020 vision plan are not being followed through. One of the things that, I had spoken to Leslie, I've even spoken to the superintendent, is accountability. That's one of the things that was a little tough for us in throwing our support behind the bond. Certain things were promised in terms of what the investment would be in Pennington, and we voted for them. These cuts impact the quality of life of our children, the level of physical activity they receive during the day. The fields are really important to that. Right now, the kids, when they have recess, it's either in a very small playground or in the lunchroom. And I've been in that lunchroom having lunch with my son, and it's just bananas. And it's crazy to think that we ask our children to sort of sit with, their hands on a desk and be quiet during the day and not exert all of that energy that they have. And I think the fields, in particular, would be instrumental in allowing children to burn off that energy, whether it's through sports, whether it's taking advantage of the fields and after school. I even believe that Dr. Hamilton, in one of his presentations, had stressed the importance of not only using the fields to improve the school, but also the community. He said that the fields would be able to be utilized during non-school hours as a play space, which is surely lacking in the Mount Vernon community. Every time I have people come up and visit me, we go to the playground, but the playground is like next to a highway, obviously, which is not cool. So it would be nice to have a place, a green space for children to play, not only during school hours, but after school. I also think that sports is something that's lacking. whether it's at Pennington or at any of the other schools, it's because we don't have the facilities. They were just talking about the high school, how they had to shut down part of it, and sports are integral to building community, also building character for students, also connecting people, and removing that sort of undermines that. I think that sports makes children's lives balanced. It also helps the teachers, so they don't have to deal with discipline in the classroom because these kids are so fidgety because they just want to play, right? And play is still an integral part of an education. It's not just math, science, reading, it's also being able to socialize and how to, you know, deal with conflict resolution. There's so many other benefits of just free play, which these kids are definitely lacking. I mean, I see it when my sons come home, that they have all this energy, they're just bouncing off the walls. We have them in sports, but, you know, I think that that's something that should be happening through the school system.
Okay.
At the end of the day, I'm just wrapping up, at the end of the day, this is all about our children. And I think reneging on the promises that were made in the bond is not serving our children. We trusted you, we believed you when you stood in front of us and told us that our school mattered and that our children mattered. We also said we would hold you accountable, so here we are.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to, Mr. Silver is going to make a statement at you. And we have a lot of people talking about the Pennington field, so we'll make one comment at the end. Is that okay?
That's fine, I just have one last comment. I said we're asking that the changes be reversed and that the bond we voted for be honored. And we're asking it to be honored now, because we're not happy with being presented one thing and voting for one thing and throwing all of our support behind one thing and then being served with something else.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Maisha Warren.
Good evening, Dr. Hamilton, and congratulations to the newly elected school board and to President Saunders and all everyone in attendance. Good evening. My name is Maisha Warren, and I am a proud Pennington alumnus as well as a parent right now of a 5th grade son. And so, just piggybacking off of what Jasmine just said, I'm really speaking to the concern of the letter that was posted under your name, President Saunders, on the district's website. And I won't repeat a lot of the things that Jasmine said, but what stuck out to me was there were a lot of contradictions in the note. In one sentence of your letter, you say the 2020 vision and the work needed to support the implementation have flexed and changed over the last 18 months. But then in another sentence, it says that the 2020 vision is on track for implementation and scheduled for the fall of 2020. In one sentence, you say the Board of Education is reaffirming our commitment. And in another sentence, you talk about there being additions to the project list. And so I guess one of the things I just wanted to ask the board when we're talking about transparency is if we're going to stay on budget and if we're going to be transparent, then are we not working within a contingency budget? It just seems disingenuous to me to add things after the fact. In one sentence, you say, as we begin to prepare for some of the biggest projects of the bond, it has become evident that our wish list would exceed our available resources. But for many of us, to us it wasn't a wish list. We voted on actual projects with actual timelines, with actual proposed outcomes to the school. So to me, it wasn't a wish list. It was very specific what you all had communicated to the community. Your letter says, we knew all along that $108 million would only be a down payment on the sizable amount of work that needs to be done throughout the district. And I have to agree with that. I think if we, we didn't vote on pie in the sky, because I'm sure that all of us in the audience could come up with $1 billion in renovations easily for some of the infrastructure needs and some of the things that are needed in the community. But we did vote on a bond of what you proposed. We listened, we asked specific questions, you gave specific answers, and we voted accordingly. And so again, it just seems like you're going back on what it is that you all presented. So it's not that we came to something and you agreed with us. You presented to us, we listened, we voted. Another part of your note says, I directed the administration to prepare a list of all projects and that the funding exceeded resources by some $19.2 million. And to me, that's a problem, because I would think that when you did come to us with your proposed, that the work and due diligence had been done with some, and I know that there are overruns and there are things that happen, but I would hope that if this happens and going forward, there are contingencies and we know things a little more close to what the actuals versus estimates are. It's hard for me to see that $19.2 million is that far off. You note that we are confident that these reductions will have no impact on our ability to deliver the 2020 vision. So now you lost me completely in your letter, because we're talking about significant things, not just to Pennington, but to 4 other schools. And so how it will have no impact on your ability to deliver, you just completely confused me there. Let's see. I'm gonna skip. I don't want to repeat what
Ms.
Jasmine
Warren,
went on.
you have 1 minute to wrap up.
No problem. Okay, so you talk about this project saving $4.6 million, but to me it really doesn't. I think what happens is if we look short term, you're losing families that would stay for sports, it loses families that would stay through 8th grade, and most importantly, it loses trust of voters for future bond requests. I think what happens is, one of the reasons you had so much support from our community is because you said you wouldn't do what was done in past bonds. The transparency would be different, the trust would be there, there'd be accountability, but now it seems like it's deja vu and we're just back to doing what happened in bonds of the past. And then lastly, I know my time is going up, I feel like we have kind of selective effective communication here. When we need communication about anything, we get calls, texts, emails. Rick McCormick's voice we hear 5 times before 6 a.m. on any given day, which is fine because you're trying to communicate something. So I found it very hard to believe that something that's going to be a multi-million-dollar effect to a particular community, we are radio silent. It's a website, it's a blur. During the summertime, where very few people go to the website. No call, no text, no email, everything, no call from Mr. McCormick at 6 a.m. in the morning. And it's fine because effective communication is important, so why not here in this case? So while I realize that some of you are short term, some of your terms will be up, etc., I think you have to be committed to not only while you're here, but to boards that will be coming after you. Because there are going to be more bonds, there are going to be more votes, there are going to be more requests for trust, and you can't erode it now. Okay, thank you.
Eileen Justino.
Hello. My name is Eileen Justino. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. I am a taxpayer and a former parent of children who went to Pennington. I'm here to speak for 2 reasons, though. One is about the change in the bond itself, but also to talk about, on behalf of my husband, Mike Justino, who is president of the Fleetwood Neighborhood Association, and the bond and the grant that was put together with Senator Klein's office, which Matt O'Keefe spoke about briefly. And first I'll talk about the bond, $108 million bond, and what is being changed with that bond itself. Initially, only 3 months ago, it came about that we had to rebond because there were changes that were being made. In particular, Parker School the community came out and said that they didn't want to just be a pre-K school, they wanted to have the pre-K to 8, and it was appropriate that the board should listen to them and make those changes. Changes were also made to Pennington to have a new field, and other schools, there were also changes made there. So the questions are, how is it that 3 months after these changes were made and the community came out, listened, and voted on these, that additional changes need to be made now in only a short period of time? And if these issues have to do with some cost overruns and stuff like that that is being stated, well, how then are these costs going to be managed as we go forward, and since not much has taken place so far? How are the goals going to be accomplished if we're only just starting? And how are we cutting costs and not aware of, and why are we not aware that some of these costs were underestimated and there are some cost overruns occurring? Also, if the $5 million, or $6 million actually, because it's 2 separate items, from Pennington is being reallocated, where is it going? Will it be improving programs for Mount Vernon students? And what benefits will the children gain from this change? Because that's what it's all about. It is about the children, and we need to make sure that these changes are occurring for them. And then lastly, if we had to vote on this for the previous bond, why don't we have to vote on it now that changes are being made to the current bond? So that's the issue for Pennington. I'll try to be brief on the other area, which is the Fleetwood Neighborhood Association, in conjunction with Senator Klein's office and Pennington School Principal, put together a grant and were allocated $173,600. And for that money, the use of it is for the playground specifically and field renovations. Now, the field is the field that is currently like a baseball field. And the specific project here, it talks very detailed about what it is for. It's to create a new playground for Pennington School so that 50 children at a time could be using it. There's two sections.
You have 1 minute, okay? 1 minute, thank you. We have a lot of speakers.
Two sections of the playground will be designated for grades 1 to 3 and respectively 4 to 6. Existing equipment will be removed and resurfaced and patched, and the whole area will be available for a playground. And then the field renovation, they will be installing new seating, as well as fixing the field and salvaging any places that can be, so that there will be places for the children to play. So this is an important part of the mix as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Trustee.
Ralph Cathcart.
Good evening, Superintendent Hamilton, and good evening to all of the board members. My name is Ralph Cathcart. I'm a parent of 2 children in the school district. I'm known to many of you. I've been very involved both on Citizens Budget Committee in the past, grounds committees, and various things for the school district. Currently, I'm working with Microsoft and Verizon for significant grants for technology for the entire district. The reason I'm here today is because I want to, in no uncertain terms, articulate how upset I am about this most recent embedded letter on the website that seeks to take money from projects that the citizens voted on based on promises by the board. Now, this raises 2 questions for me. First of all, from a moral issue, who would do that to children and take things from, again, the citizens voted on a budget, right? And they voted on this $108 million bond. And for all of you out there who voted on it, you were promised certain things, right? And that's what the material representations that induced you to vote for that bond, okay? No one on this board can unilaterally decide to take things from anybody, whether it is Parker, whether it is Grimes, whether it is Pennington, whether it is Mandela. Nobody does that. It is illegal, in fact. I am a parent, but I'm also a litigator by trade. You cannot change the terms of a bond that was voted on by the citizens of this city unilaterally. Now, up until now, I have been a strident supporter of this administration and of Superintendent Hamilton, and I still am. His vision is outstanding. This is the first time we've had a concerted professional effort to bring Mount Vernon out of the shadows, out of ridiculous standards, out of inferior standards. But this is outrageous. I'm upset, okay? And this has to be addressed. The board members, both the new ones and the existing ones, need to get back together and figure this out, because this is not acceptable. This is just not acceptable. You don't take things from 4 different people. I don't know where the monies are. I don't know why there are cost overruns if that's the case, okay? But there is way too little transparency and way too much unilateral action in the cloak of night during the summer. And that is really, really outrageous. And everyone who knows me knows that I am not like this normally. I am the biggest fan of Mount Vernon that anyone has ever seen. This is disrespectful to us. I've had 36 parents call me and say, how is this possible? How are they going to take our fields? The person who was going to sell the fields is upset, and he was led to believe that there was an agreement. We cannot act in this unprofessional manner. It is unprofessional, and it lacks decency, beyond the fact that it is in all likelihood illegal. So I ask you, and I apologize for some of the fervor and emotion, but I ask with all due respect that all of you reconvene and reconsider these proposed cuts, because that's what they are. No one's voted on them, and you don't have the authority to do them. And we should not be wasting the tens of thousands of dollars to put out new bonds to try to do new things that have already been agreed upon. So I ask for this administration to continue to work together, to put aside whatever petty differences anyone on this board may or may not have, and to work for the children. If you're ever confused, it's for the children. It's not about us. Please work together and let's fix this. And I look forward to hearing about what the decision is here, because we certainly are ready to address whatever the outcome is. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Jane Curtis.
It's the price of the land. Talk to him. Reduce the price.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bishop.
Jane Curtis.
Yes, I'm Jane Curtis, and my topic this evening is leadership. Over the years, many well-meaning people have worked ineffectively to bring positive change to Mount Vernon. They have failed not because the opposition was too strong, but because they were too embedded in Mount Vernon's culture of complacency. We began to see a way out of this morass with the arrival of new leadership. We passed a $108 million bond referendum with the confidence that this time the money wouldn't vanish into the pit of corruption and mismanagement. We rejoiced when the Board of Education brought lawsuits against the city to end the giveaway of pilots to developers, so that the tax burden would be equitable and provide the needed funds to educate the city's children. We sought new school board candidates to strengthen our ranks, people who we thought would safeguard our investment and continue the fight. Until July 1st at 12:01 a.m., there was a movement that had a real chance of succeeding. It had a vision, a plan, a momentum, and most critically, a leader. It encompassed the schools and the city at large. The events of July 1st have resulted in a crisis of confidence. We see a return to a leadership of the old guard, an action taken without warning in the dead of night, and apparently in violation of the bylaws. We are now worried. We are worried about the disposition of the $108 million. We are concerned that the lawsuits will not be vigorously pursued. We are concerned about a return to complacency. Many who were actively promoting the renaissance of the public school system have gone silent. Many who were actively working for the new city council to support and cooperate with the school district have stopped in their tracks. Neighborhood groups who were enthusiastic participants are now waiting to see what will happen. We are wondering who, if anyone, we can trust. We are wondering if it's hopeless and time to leave. We're wondering if we have wasted our time. This is what was accomplished on July 1st at 12:01 a.m. Thank you.
Marlene Wertheim.
Good evening, everybody. This is the first time that I've attended a Board of Education meeting. And I'm just wondering offhand if this is the usual procedure to start with an executive session. So, okay. As we know, our schools have been a sensitive subject when it comes to Mount Vernon's image in the outside world. It's therefore encouraging to see the current promise for positive change. A superintendent with a 2020 vision to reorganize our schools, improve the quality of teaching as well as the buildings and grounds, the passage of a budget and bond to support this vision, new energy brought by recently elected board members, your efforts to put off poorly planned development in the city, and along with this, a better bond rating and an increase in New York State aid. On the other hand, it is disillusioning to learn that this newly constituted board's first gesture was to stage a clandestine meeting with the purpose of changing the leadership. As I learned at the reading of the Declaration of Independence at St. Paul's Church on July 4th, your Mount Vernon public is echoing the words of the original 13 colonies in their complaints about the injustices of King George III. Quote, "He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable to achieve his goals." Change of officers is an accepted protocol. What I and many others take issue with is how you went about it. Hopefully you're not establishing a precedent. Wouldn't you want to start out presenting yourselves as a cohesive body, united in focusing on the singular purpose of elevating our essential school system? And so the community is now looking to you to overshadow this misstep with demonstrations of more open dialogue, mutual cooperation, minus character defamation, and actions that will draw positive attention to our city. In this way, helping us to make it desirable as a residential destination for families. Thank you.
Martin. It went to sleep. Our next speaker is Paul Herrick.
Hi, board members. My name is Paul Herrick. I've been moved to Mount Vernon in 1985. 3 of my children attended Pennington, took it through 5th or 6th grade, depending on which one it was. A lot of experience what's happened with budgets and the like over the years. I think the point that largely is being made here is that when the refinement of the bond occurred in March and people voted on it, and I went and pulled it up today just to remind myself of some of the details on it, is that the issue is that there would be a genuine effort and an ability to complete those items. And having seen bonds come and go over the years in in Mount Vernon and at the as it affects Pennington, I'm not surprised that there might be cost overruns. So I think the real question, and that needs to be explained with greater clarity to the public, and it's not just here at this board meeting, but to every single school that's affected, is, how and where did the bond budget go wrong? I mean, how did we get to where we are? I mean, I've looked at what's there, and I don't quite understand it at this point, but I want to understand it. So rather than making accusations, and I think we just need a better explanation with much greater detail and clarity as to why these choices are having to be made. That being said, I want to speak specifically to Pennington because we're finally again doing this K-8 implementation here, because I had 2 children in the schools at Pennington when they attempted in 2008 to do it and then withdrew it, largely because they didn't have the science labs and there were decisions made at that time. But what I do know is that a K-8 implementation does require a proper sports field. The thing that I would speak to, being a lawyer who is familiar with land use, I would say that you need to take a hard look at the property next door. Land is unique. That property will maybe not be available a year, 2, or 3 from now. And an opportunity to acquire land, rather than maybe fully develop it, but acquire it, is something that should be done in a timely way. So the point I would make, I don't know what was promised to anybody. I have shopped at Girardi's for decades, but they're not a thriving business, I know that, by what I see there and what I've seen over the years. The land there, though, is irreplaceable. That being said, though, it might also be contaminated. Because I have helped clients buy former nurseries. And I think that what should be done, and that should be money allocated for, is to investigate the site. Because I would not want Mount Vernon to acquire another property that is contaminated. And that could be a very big ticket item. I've seen properties cost hundreds of thousands, even $1 million, imagine that, to clean up. And I would hate to add that to our portfolio. But if it is clean, or it can be rendered clean, then I would like to see us acquire that property and perhaps do at least a partial field renovation as best as we're able, perhaps with natural grass and the like, and some natural landscaping. But you do need fields, proper fields for K-8 to work, and that's the point I would make. And I think that they should also, the board should look at ways to acquire that land at the least possible cost. And one way is to work with the city government, as difficult as that might be these days, because through the city government, a school district under New York state law can acquire by condemnation, which is eminent domain, and then get fair market value and kind of force the deal on their own terms. Landowners may not like it, but it is used. It is one of the powers of government, and I think the school district should look to that opportunity. Another possibility to see if the family that owns the property wishes to donate it to the Mount Vernon Educational Foundation and perhaps take advantage of it from a tax standpoint and make it, but we wouldn't want to do that unless we know it's a clean site. Thank you.
I like
Reverend Troy DeCohen.
Yes, please.
Thomas Keller.
Thanks. Good evening. I haven't been here for about 3 months since you voted on the budget in April. And I made a promise to the former president, Trustee Zamora, that I wouldn't bring this topic up for the balance of last fiscal year. But it's a new fiscal year and there's a new president, so I'm bringing it up. Get rid of the utility tax, $2.3 million, which you really can't deduct, because in the federal, if you itemize, it's either income taxes or sales taxes. This might be grouped into a sales tax. For most people in the Northeast, certainly around here, it's the income tax. I was on the budget committee last year. Near the end, we were going to be getting approximately $4 million more from the state. I think it ended up $6 million, but it was at the last minute. And of course, because you got $6 million, you added projects in to get to the 246.3. You could have eliminated the utility tax and come in at 244. It's too late to do anything about this year's budget from last year. It's unfair. People that use heating oil do not pay it. They pay it on electricity, but you know, natural gas, Con Ed, you pay it, but not on heating oil. Okay. Yonkers spends about $22,000 per student. I'm going up to $27,000, and it may have been less than that. $590 million budget's presented. It's part of the city budget. It's a unified budget. I'm using the numbers here. This was June 25th. It talks about homeless. We have a lot of homeless, 10% of our students. And it focuses in on Tamika Johnson from White Plains, who has 4 kids in the school district, age 4 to 14. And I'm using 8096 as the number. 246.3, it comes to 30,400. Now, Trustee Miller, formerly on the board, told me that the number of students is not necessarily the only metric when you determine the budget. No, it's not the only one, but it's the most important one. New Rochelle has about 11,000 students, 250, 260, 23,000. I told you what Yonkers was. And I don't know, Superintendent Hamilton, whether they're quoting you correctly, but you're quoted as saying the teachers need more work to provide more training for teachers so they can better understand and identify the conditions of homelessness. My wife's been a teacher for 27 years in this district. She's had homeless kids. All the teachers know it. They don't point out a student is homeless and so forth like that. And this article leaves out so much. This lady, 4 children, 32 years old, nothing about her family. Where's the father? Where's the husband? Where are the brothers? Where are the sisters? Where are the friends? And they say she doesn't have money. She walks 4 miles from Mount Vernon to New Rochelle to get a meal. Would you refer to Sacred Heart? Roberta Rapuzzo, she runs the soup kitchen down there.
Sacred Heart closed. They're closed.
The homeless shelter in White Plains, the old, I forget the name of the hotel. They serve meals. I know people that work there after school, part of the BOCES program.
Mr. Keller,
So,
Mr. Keller, can you wrap it up, please?
yes. Mr. Hamilton was quoted as here saying we need more social workers.
Dr.
We need.
Dr.
Don't interrupt me, will you? You had your time, and I didn't interrupt you. So shut your mouth.
Well, give him respect. He's Dr.
Says we need more
Mr. Hamilton.
psychologists and social workers and training teachers I went into. I mean, how many more social workers and psychologists and so forth? We're not a social service agency. Talk to Ms. Giroux. She works for Westchester County Social Services. Maybe she can help. Tell me when you're going to make the assignments for the committees. I'm especially interested in budget and audit.
We're going to do that tonight.
And I don't know if Charmaine Farron is interested in the audit committee, but she's a tremendous person to be on the audit committee. I know she can't chair it because she's no longer a trustee, but I think you should make an offer to her to be on the audit committee. I've served with her the last couple of years. She really knows her stuff. She put a lot of work into it, and she'd be an asset. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment.
Madam President, if you don't mind, I'd like to just make a couple of comments germane to some of the statements made this evening to the public. Firstly, the issue related to the Pennington Playground, I am going to be asking for an opportunity to meet with the executive council of the PTA so that we could talk about some of the ideas we have so that we can get the playground erected in the most effective and efficient manner possible, and talk about what some of our challenges are and have a meeting of the minds. We share a goal, and that goal is to get the playground erected as soon as possible. but there is some information that perhaps the PTA can help us resolve. So we'll have that conversation offline as soon as possible. I'll reach out to the PTA if you're open to that, and we can talk about how we might be able to get that expedited. In relationship to the bond, you've heard over the last year and a half that the bond is designed to, it's a fluid process. We knew that there would be some projects that would take multiple years to implement, and at some point we would have to make some difficult decisions about what's phase 1, what's phase 2, what's going to be phase 3. It is true that to the extent that we may want to add fields to some of our schools, Pennington in particular, there's a due diligence that is required. The board has authorized us to do that due diligence to find out, 1, what are the real costs of the land? 2, is the land feasible for the purposes that we've identified that we want to use, and that includes environmental studies, and 3, then to make recommendations based on that information. So we are authorized by the board to do that, and then we will come back to the board with that information and give further direction in terms of how the board wants to proceed. But due to the delicate nature associated with the acquisition of land, clearly we can't have public conversations if we want to enter negotiations about purchasing of land. But the vision remains intact in terms of how we plan to do it. The note that we need to continue to keep on our radar, of course, is that, as someone mentioned at the microphone, there is much work to do in Mount Vernon, and it will exceed $108 million. So we have to decide what will be our immediate projects and what projects will be postponed and what projects will be added on later on. Clearly, our commitment and the board's commitment centers around offering full-day pre-K, making certain that our neighborhood schools are converted to pre-K-8 centers, making sure that our 3 high schools are high schools of choice, high schools of excellence for our students, and of course to make sure that it is all connected to an academic vision. That has not changed. The changes that you may hear about may sometimes have to do with what our priorities are, what's happening now, what's going to happen later, and when do we need to revisit this. So while I appreciate all of your comments and your concerns and some misinformation that's out there and some misinterpretation of information that is out there, and the whole issue of transparency, we will certainly work on doing a better job about that. But clearly the commitment to the 2020 vision has not changed by administration or by the board, and we will continue to do our best job as best as we can with keeping you informed about how these conversations are happening and how priorities are being decided and when they are being decided. But I thank you for all of your comments. I feel that, particularly as it relates to the Pennington parents that spoke out this evening, we'll certainly give you an opportunity to hear more about what our plans are and to make sure that you are fully informed about what some of the safety concerns are and be led by your direction as taxpayers and citizens of the Pennington and Mount Vernon community at large. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. We're going on to committee assignments. Based on the conversations we've had tonight and the spending of money for the school district, the board decided to have the entire board on the facilities committee. So I will chair the facilities committee. Vice President White will co-chair in my absence. I will have Dr. Neem on the Education and IB Studies Committee, and Trustee Williams on the Family and Communication Committee, Trustee McCowan on the Policy Committee, Trustee Torres on the Budget, Finance, Audit, and Education Committee. Okay. As I said, I will be on the Facility Committee, Wellness Committee. Trustee White will be on the Education and Facility Committee. believe that's what I do.
Did you do family community engagement?
I'm sorry.
Did you do family community?
Yeah, that's trustee Giroux, yes. That leaves trustee Giroux and trustee Zamora. Would you still like to be on the facility committee?
I thought you said all the board members are board.
Yes. Would you like to be on another committee?
Well, what about strategic planning, school restructuring?
That's Dr. Lynn.
I'd like to be on that one as well.
Ms. Giroux?
I no longer wish to be on the wellness committee because my vision has changed. I no longer believe that that the federal government standards are healthiest for our kids, and I can't fight against that.
Okay, so what committee would you like to be on?
Facilities, she's on facilities, right?
Yes, I'm on facilities. Yes.
All right, and Ms. Russo, I did tell you, stand on budget, right? On budget. All right, that concludes the committee report.
I will include, Madam. Madam President, you can provide that information. I will make certain that it goes home in the weekly mailing to the board.
I think Mr. McCormick has it written down.
Okay.
All right, then I guess you guys need to decide when you're going to have your committees, meetings.
Well, if we're doing reports, we can do that now.
Okay, I'd like to be on also the strategic planning. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so we can start with committee reports. Ms. White, do you have anything for committee reports that you have today?
No, not really. I sat on the construction committee, and no, we haven't had an education committee yet, or a facilities meeting.
I met with, as far as special education committee, I met with Ms. Gayon yesterday, and we decided to have a chat and chew August 15th at Rebecca Turner from 6 to 8. And I believe, Michael, did you have any? I'm sorry, did you have anything on the policy committee that you need to report?
Not to report, but we will have a meeting. Rick?
Yes, sir. 8 okay? 8 okay? 8 o'clock, yes.
Yeah, so not this Friday, but next Friday.
What's the date?
You can look at the calendar. The 4th, is that right? A week from Friday?
Policy.
A policy committee meeting just to catch up with my new co-member and review the outstanding policies from NISBA with Rick. I think there's also, Dr. Hamilton, you wanted to discuss a nepotism policy, I believe?
Yes.
And the other one was Mr. Silver had a policy to discuss. Ken, do you remember what that policy was? It's in my email. A week from Friday.
Okay.
I'll look it up. Anyway, we'll be discussing several policies. The public's welcome to attend. So that's what's happening.
Okay, and Mr. Williams, family and community engagement, I know that Trustee Miller was going to help you get kick-started on that, and
Right.
I will also help you as much as I can, okay?
Okay, thank you.
And we're going to meet tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. at the district. Will be the family and community engagement meeting, which will
Tomorrow's the 26th, right?
correct tomorrow.
Are there any other committees that need to report? Because I don't think anyone's met. No committee reports?
Madam President, can I say one thing? Just go back. I thought actually, although not Mr. Silver's fault, but that graph was somewhat illegible on this screen. I encourage people to go back and look at it because it looks to me, I thought it was very helpful actually, the concept of showing people kind of,
18 months ago, 6 months ago, where we are now, kind of as the categories flush, and also that the thing I found most helpful was the yellow hash mark, which shows you kind of where we are today in terms of what's already spent or committed. So that shows you, I mean, we're spending this $108 million over several years, right? It's a process. And that was, I thought it was actually more than that committed. It was helpful for me anyway to look and see, oh, you know, this is how much we've done, and this is, because as everyone recalls, when we did the refinement vote, right, one thing we did was add all the Mandela work, a whole addition and renovation at Mandela, zero, which was in the original bond, as well as possible land acquisitions and these other things. So anyway, I just thought it was very helpful to see visually how these things sorted out, and those graphs will, you know, continue to be in flux as we implement things within the bounds of what the public approved, of course. That's all. I just wanted to say it was helpful, and I'm going to look at it in more detail on my own computer at home.
Okay, so the next order of business is to accept the minutes from June 20th and July 1st. Motion?
All motion.
Oh, thank you, sir. Oh, I thought you were asking for the motion. Second?
Second.
All those in favor of June 20?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. July 1st?
Motion.
Trustee Saunders? Second? Second?
Second.
I will second the motion. Come on.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Abstention.
Abstention.
Trustee Zamore and Trustee Jaros are abstaining. Motion carries.
Now is the opportunity for board members to remove something from the consent agenda.
I have a few resolutions, unless somebody else wants to go first.
I think you can go ahead.
All right, Rick, are you ready?
Yes, please go start.
Okay, 13.0. That's the resolution to appointment of the school attorney to a one-year term. Should I just go, I'll just mention all the ones I'm going to pull, and then we can have a discussion. Okay. The next one is 11.29, which was the authorization to discard obsolete computer network equipment. The next one is the number here. Here it is. 11.16 printer maintenance and supply contract added to the services of added to the services of CBS Xerox.
I'm sorry, what?
11.16 printer maintenance and supply contract added to the services of CBS Xerox. Try to miss any here. What's this one? This attorney. Sorry, my computer's not working. I have to do it by paper. Okay, we're good to go.
Just those three?
Correct. Start with the attorney.
I'm sorry, hold on, Mr. Chairman. Are there any other trustees that have anything to remove from the consent agenda? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll approve the consent agenda, then come back.
Sure.
Okay?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Trustee White?
Second.
Trustee Saunders? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna go to what, 11:42?
There were two resolutions included on this evening's agenda that were not placed on consent. They were late additions, and one of them required an explanation from Ms. Gahon, and the other one is the awarding of bids for the construction work at Thornton High School. Those are the first two items that are not on the consent agenda, so if you guys want to take action on those first, and then we'll get to...
Sure.
Okay. Ms. Gale? Can I have a motion to put Ms. Gale on the floor
To discuss which
to
one?
discuss her resolution?
The designation of student residency.
Motion.
Second.
You have in front of you a resolution to appoint me as the designee to determine residency. Currently, the board policy has the board or its designee to determine residency. Given the current re-registration, if all of the parents come to you to determine whether to appeal the residency determinations, I believe that it will create a backlog. So rather than have a backlog in residency determinations by the board, the process would be that I make the residency determinations, and then the parent can appeal to the Commissioner of Education if they're not satisfied with that determination.
Okay, are there any questions?
How far along in the registration process are we statistically? What percentage?
Almost 30%.
So we're 30% through, and how many have you denied so far, roughly?
It's hard to say right now how many we've denied because we haven't re-registered them. I think we'll have a better sense after we complete the process.
In a normal year, forget about the re-registration, but a normal year since you've been here, what's a typical number of appeals that you see or denials that you see come to the board over the course of, say, per year?
I think that this is my second full year in this position, and I feel more confident in the position in terms of making residency determinations. So I think that we have a much better process in terms of sending out residency determination letters, in terms of following up, in terms of investigating the cases with the private investigator, and in terms of really having solid cases when we deny residency. So I think the appeals have been few and far between because our cases are pretty solid. The cases that have come to the board for appeal have been rejected.
By whom?
By the board.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And we talked about software to determine the correct address or to run software. Is that something that Mr. McGrath would be able to help us with?
We're going to look into, after our conversation, we're going to look into additional software to be able to run more comprehensive address checks.
What is the impetus to bringing this now? If you're only 30% through and you don't even know if it's going to be a backlog, why bring this now?
I think that it gives us a cleaner picture of what the process is for residency determinations. I don't think that the residency determination or the residency appeal should be in the board's hands. I think that it's cleaner if you leave it in our hands when we have knowledge of whether or not the family actually lives in the district.
I guess the question for me is, how are expulsions handled?
I wouldn't call it expulsions.
No, I know, it's not expulsion, but I'm saying, how are expulsions handled when they're appealed?
We haven't expelled any students. Do you mean disciplinary expulsions?
Yeah.
We haven't,
We've never, there's never been a student expelled in Mount Vernon?
There has not been an
I find that
expulsion
hard
in
to
my
believe.
time in Mount Vernon.
Okay, well, so I guess superintendent, what's the policy? To me, it doesn't seem that much of a difference between whether you're kicking a kid out because of a discipline problem or you're kicking a kid out because they don't live here. You're still kicking a kid out of the school.
So an expulsion means that you're permanently terminating a student's rights to education.
That's right.
And I can't think of any circumstances under my leadership where I would ever see the justification to terminate a student's right to a public education. In instances where students have a difficult time following procedures, we place them in alternative programs or home instruction. And I think that is the most appropriate way to handle that. But to terminate a student's right to education on a permanent basis is kind of moot from my perspective.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, the question really is, do we as a board want a say in whether a kid is on whether to deny an appeal, right? This is the question, right? Should it be the board decision to deny an appeal of someone who says they actually do live in the district, but our administration tells us that they don't?
What Mrs. Gottman is recommending is actually consistent with the board's policy. So this is just making certain that we are applying the policy as it currently exists and having a designee with that authority in lieu of the board.
But if there is an appeal, it's going to go straight from you to the state.
That is
It's
correct.
going to go to the Commissioner of Education.
Do you have a reference for this policy?
Hold on. You search in the board docs under.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Are you finished, Ms. Neal? Are you finished?
I think it's 7130, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, 7130.
Okay.
The other resolution on the consent, that was not on consent before the arrival of trustees this evening, is the award of bids for construction work at Nellie Thornton High School. And it reads as follows. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, this Board of Education award the following bids for projects at Nellie Thornton High School. General construction to Nerum Construction for $8,437,000. Mechanical construction to Framing Mechanical for $1,255,000. Plumbing construction to S&L Plumbing and Heating for $773,405. Electrical construction to Talt Electric for $1,934,000. Audio and visual construction to Sight and Sound for $431,655. And auditorium seating construction to McHugh Institutional Furnishings for $845,638.
Rick?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I can barely hear you. Like, is your microphone on?
It is. I'll do it again.
Can you do it again?
Sure. What's the number?
It is 15.2. It is on your board docs, and the backup material is also attached. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, this Board of Education award the following bids for projects at Nellie Thornton High School. General construction to Nerum Construction for $8,437,000. Mechanical construction to Freeman Mechanical, $1,255,000. Plumbing construction to S&L Plumbing and Heating for $773,405. Electrical construction to Talt Electric for $1,934,000. Audiovisual construction to Sight and Sound for $431,655. Auditorium seating construction to McHugh Institutional Furnishings for $845,638.
Thank you. By the way, on the previous resolution that we just had the discussion on regarding Ms. Gayon, are we going to take a vote on that? Are we going to take a vote on these individually?
Yes.
Yeah.
So shouldn't we do it right after that discussion and not have a bulk afterwards?
If that's okay, I agree with that, otherwise it would be confusing. So, Ms. Keown, yes, it is policy 7130, thank you for that.
second by Ms. Saunders and Ms. White. All those in favor?
This is the...
This is the designation of student residence.
15.1.
Gotcha.
Motion.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Oppose? Abstain?
Abstain.
Trustee Zamora abstains. Motion carries. 15.2, award bids for construction work at Nellie Thornton High School. There a motion?
Discussion?
It's a motion to discuss.
Motion put on the floor and then discussion.
Yes, for motion.
Trustee McGowan. Second?
Second.
Trustee Saunders.
Yeah, ready for discussion? Okay, thank you. So, took a look at this bid, and originally the estimates at Nellie Thornton, the preliminaries that we had were coming in somewhere between, on the low side of 19 million and upwards on the high side of close to 25 mil. The actual bid, as we note here right now, is actually significantly less, at about 13.5 mil. It's one of the things that I've always recommended to the board, that we seek the projects that we need and to thoroughly vet them, plan for them, send them out to bid, and not be frightened by original estimates, because then it really enslaves us and it never gives us an opportunity to really seek the projects that would be proper and adequate for the district. So as one speaker, I believe, Mrs. Warren, who spoke before, in terms of the budgets and the process and whether or not we're going to have enough money and funds to complete the vision, I would say that I believe that we do with all the projects that we stated. And I've always recommended that we may not, let's say for example, have the money to do certain, let's say interior, in terms of interior choices when it comes to certain projects, or let's say even the fields, maybe we could cut back on some of the proposed items within the content, let's say, of the scope, but not to cut the project out completely, right? So let's say Pennington Field right now calls for the purchase of the property to include 2 tennis courts, maybe a soccer field, maybe we could only afford 1 tennis court, or whatever it may be. So scale back is the answer of the particular project, not to diminish it to the point where it's not adequate for our expansion of what we need to do or fit the amount of children that we need, but certainly move forward with the project as promised. In this particular case, we noticed that the bid came in much lower. Also at Pennington, the original estimates were around 18 million, I believe, for Pennington. The final bids came in at somewhere around 12.5 million. So again, we came in much lower. I know that we did the Graham site work, was that bid came in at roughly, I believe 1.5. I believe maybe some cost overruns may have sent it to 1.6, 1.7. So original estimates right now at Pennington Fields for 4.6 million, I think are outrageous. And I believe we're going to be able to come in much less than that. Right now, I know properties are being, let's say, owners of properties right now are currently asking some very high numbers for those properties. Just know the facts and what the facts are. The facts are that we've hired our attorneys to, well, we've asked our attorneys to hire appraisers to appraise the properties. We cannot pay legally a penny more than those properties get appraised for. So, for an example, if Mandela wanted $4 million, but the property was only appraised for, making these numbers up, $1 million, by law, the school district cannot pay more than $1 million. What we could do, if the owner does not want to sell, is we can invoke our rights to eminent domain. And rarely does a school district or a government entity lose in that court proceeding. That's the way it works. So we cannot make, right now, a rational decision in terms of, A, how much the properties will cost or what priority we'll purchase the properties in. Obviously, the priority of, I believe what we should do is choose them in order of, the construction that's happening, right? It only makes sense. You don't want to have to go there twice, go back twice, and have to hire a second contractor or go out to bid again when you have potentials of economies of scale of giving one contractor a bigger package, you can get a cheaper job. So I just wanted to shed some light on this, especially with an example right now from Nellie Thornton. After I ran some back of the napkin numbers with some people on the construction, we're calling it the Capital Projects Committee for the bond, I'm very comfortable that we're going to be just fine. So these rumors of like, oh, we're not going to be able to afford and deliver all the things that we promised, I don't believe it's going to be the case, unless we introduce projects that I don't believe are necessary right now. And as those come up, I will be certain to let you know. We can proceed. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? I just wanted to clear Mr. Silver, or I don't know if Mike's here, but oh, hi, Mike. Yeah, yes, you are. You are. Is this really? This is the auditorium and the rest of the school. This is all in.
For Thornton.
For Thornton, yeah.
Yes.
And what are we doing with the seats? Because I know there was discussion of replacing them, just fixing them, replacing just the covers. What are we doing with the seats?
No, not at Thornton. Thornton's a full replacement. I believe we're using the wood. No, I think it's full.
It's a full replacement. I believe the restoration part, Trustee McCohen, is only for the end caps.
Yeah, the metal end caps.
Right, the metal end caps will be restored.
Okay, because I know we talked about that in the meeting. So this 845 number is for that. And does this include exterior work, grounds work, or this is only the interior?
It should be everything.
Yeah, the site work is the bluestone and
Right, all the site work.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to elaborate on the bluestone?
So, good evening, everybody. My name is
Are there
Michael
different variations of it?
My name is Michael Felicio. I'm the Director of Facilities. The Bluestone is an upgrade that we put in when we initially did the spec for the job. The Bluestone will give a more grand appearance to what is going to be our school of excellence, our performing arts school. So the other options are concrete or concrete pavers or colored concrete. And the thought behind the Bluestone is its grand appearance, but also its longevity. That particular stone could last up to 100 years, and the repairs, if they were to break, would be sectional rather than concrete that will be exposed to salt and different and other environmental things that may reduce its longevity. So the thought was, if we could do this fiscally and financially, that it would be the decision that the committee had gone with up to this point. So that's my understanding of it.
So you're doing basically an upgrade, and then is there different variations of the bluestone?
So it was in the original scope, so what would happen would be there would be a deduct if we went to a different stone, like concrete or pavers. There would be a deduct and perhaps a saving to the overall number. That's my understanding of it.
By the way, thank you, Mr. Felicio. For those out there that want to have a comparison, a true comparison, if you've gone down to the Graham site that we've just recently completed.
The audio-visual portion of this, does that include everything needed for the theater renovations and the black box and the lighting and the rigging and the theater-specific elements? Or is that a separate contract?
I believe it's all inclusive of the renovation.
Because I know we're working with a consultant for the theater, the specific theater aspects of the auditorium, right?
So I actually will have to defer to Mr. Silver if he might know the answer to the actual audio-visual stuff. I know the technology is separate to that, the technology for the building. But I believe it is in the audiovisual, is part of the big number.
Okay, so this AV number it includes the sight and sound contract?
Yes.
It includes
That is true.
the theater as well, okay.
Yeah, it's considered, just to keep it, because it's specialized theater, so instead of making it part of IT, it's all.
Oh, right, so the audio-visual number, that is just the theater?
That's just.
Just the theater, yeah, that makes sense.
By the way, Trustee McCohen, under the breakdown, audio-visual construction, sight and sound is the company as a contractor.
Right.
And I see it here at $431,655.
Right.
Okay, so that is part of the breakdown.
Right, and that number makes sense.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
We need a vote?
Yes.
That? Motion?
It's already on the table.
Yep, we're turning the table.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion
15, no, that was 13.
Well, now
it's
15.3. Trustee Samora, do you want to have a discussion first?
Okay. 13.3, so 1.
No, it's 15 something now.
What used to be?
Okay, I'll tell you what, it's all mixed up. I don't have the digital version, so just name, what's the name?
Let's make a motion to discuss.
Sure, but what's the name of the resolution?
This is about the attorneys.
Okay, so resolution for the appointment of the school attorney. So, last year.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, second for discussion. So last year, we voted on this contract in 6-month increments. So it was a semi-annual or biannual, however you want to look at it. And that was because, in general, it keeps our contractors honest that are working for us on an annual basis to make sure that, number one, the district, the administration has a chance to reevaluate their performance on a mid-year basis versus letting them go the entire year and then realizing that maybe they didn't deliver. And we have a history of that, and we failed miserably at that in the past. So last year, we signed them up for 6 months, and then 6 months, they came up for renewal, and we were pleased, and we renewed them. So I see no reason right now why we're going for a full annual contract when we could easily split it up. And that's not just for the attorneys, I'm not trying to single them out, but for any vendors or contractors, except for construction contractors, of course, we have one project, there's one bid. Secondly, when it comes to certain services, such as some land use services, they're not exactly the best ones, as we've noticed right now. We're about 5 months since the bond modification vote, and we still don't have one property appraisal, even though they promised it to us by the 15th of July, and now they're looking to deliver it 4 weeks from now. We have to hold these people accountable. The only way you hold them accountable is with their contracts, their money. So, I don't like anybody that much, no contractor that much, to give them an annual contract. That's where I stand on that, so I will not be voting for this resolution as is proposed for an annual contract for the school attorney.
Okay. So we can make a motion to proceed with the vote on that?
Well, can I just, since the trustees in Moore's point, who had these discussions, and was there a discussion about annual versus 6 months, or?
Well, there was a discussion last year. I believe Mr. Zamora, Trustee Zamora, wanted to assess them after 6 months. Was there an assessment done after 6 months?
Well, generally what happens, there's been, to my knowledge, no formal assessment, but generally the attorneys are board attorneys. They are not superintendent attorneys, but the superintendent apprises the board if there are any issues or concerns and whether or not there's a recommendation to change. There's been no recommendation to change. This was on a previous agenda at a 6-month contract, and it was changed. I'm not sure where that conversation came in. That happened while I was on vacation. I have no significant challenges with Ingerman and Smith, and see no reason not to proceed with them at this juncture.
By the way, the reservation was not whether to proceed with them or not. or whether to proceed with them on a full annual basis versus a half-year contracts. Last year, it came up for, after the 6-month point, you brought it up back on the resolution, we were content, we voted for it.
That's correct.
And that's okay. But why should any vendor have an annual contract in this district when in the past, we've been bamboozled, we've been everything, and people haven't delivered. And we end up wasting taxpayer dollars. At least this forces us to evaluate them, it forces us to think about whether they're performing or not. That's just my 2 cents. We could amend the resolution.
Is anybody in favor of amending it, or do you want to vote it for a year?
I defer to the board clerk, but I would think should we vote no first and then discuss the amendment, or you tell us? Procedurally, I mean. Because I'd be in favor of that. If they agreed to 6 months in the past.
We only agreed to the 6 months last year. Prior to
Yeah.
that, it was an annual.
If we want to change, if we'd like to not vote, we don't have to vote no on this. You can amend, you can rescind, Mrs. Moore would rescind his second. You could rescind your motion, and that would take it off the table.
I guess the question is, do we need to have a discussion with Ingram and Smith, or do we just vote on it now and then just tell them?
There would need to be a discussion, I'm sure.
Okay, then maybe we should just pull this and not vote on it.
I agree.
I mean, I just agree with Mr. Zamora, Trustee Zamora. We have no problems with, I have no problems with Ingram and Smith.
That's completely up to the board. It's fine either.
I'm fine with them for a year.
I'm fine with them for a year, truly.
I'm not fine with them because I remember with some of the contracts, they just kept going on and on and on. And we would be going back and forth as the board and the attorneys, and they ended up doing exactly what we had suggested in, like months before. So, I think like Trustee Zamora said, we need to hold their feet to the fire a little bit more, and we are the board.
So we voted,
I'm
we
good with
voted
6
for,
months.
so right now we voted the resolution for discussion. Should we vote on the year, or should we wait?
You can vote on the resolution as it is. If it fails, then we can revisit how the board would like to, we can revisit how the board would like to revise it.
Okay. All right, so motion to vote for.
All those in favor
Of what?
of
Yeah.
approving Ingram and Smith for a 1-year contract?
As is.
July
As is.
1st through June 30th. Saunders says aye. Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Rose?
No.
Mr. McGowan?
I'll say no.
Mr. Zamora?
No.
Ms. Torres? Mr. Russo?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
No.
Motion does not carry.
The next one is, Rick?
It's the authorization to discard obsolete computer and network equipment.
Okay. Motion for discussion?
Trustee Zamora made the motion.
Second.
Trustee Saunders, second.
So on this one, I understand I saw the list of computer equipment and network equipment to be discarded. I just want a little description in terms of, or a little bit more clarity, I should say, as to what is the process, where are they going? Are they going to be donated? Are they going to be sold for scrap metal? I see Mr. McGrath in the audience. Would this be something that you can speak to?
Sure. So,
And just to add on to that, I specifically remember a resolution in the spring, didn't we have a resolution about authorizing the sale of surplus things? So is this like a part 2? Like this is what is not able to be sold? Is that the idea?
that's exactly right. So the resolution that was done a few
Please
months
use the microphone.
Oh. The resolution that was done several months ago was done basically authorizing an auction and a company to work with an auction. This basically says this is the equipment that would go to that auction. So the part 1 was saying, here's the company, here's how we're going to dispose of, we're going to have the ability to dispose of equipment through an auction. This is saying, here's a list of equipment to be disposed of. most of this equipment will go through an auction. Some of this equipment was purchased through E-rate funds, and so there are special rules and regulations in terms of the district can't make money on that, so we have to just dispose of it. So this basically just authorized the district to find the best way to dispose of the equipment, and we already have the method through the auction for the majority of it.
And what about, you know, the public library is part of the school district. It's a school district library, right? Is there any relationship with the library in the school district in terms of maybe donating some surplus or
The E-rate.
right, maybe E-rate stuff to the library? Any discussions with the, and actually it's convenient that the president of the library actually works for the district.
That is convenient.
Still.
That is convenient. So we have somebody that we can speak about that. We haven't had that conversation, and quite frankly, until the board approves us to dispose of equipment, well, assuming the board approves this, then we can have that conversation, trying to figure out a way to go. If that's the direction, you know, that I'm directed to go, we can certainly have a conversation and talk about if there's anything that the library wants and how it works. But first, the board has to authorize us to dispose of it. That would be step one.
Okay, and the last question is, I know the same resolution was up before. I know we pulled it last time because it involved some close to 100 nooks that were considered obsolete. We're going to go to auction, and we actually ended up, you know, getting more money from Barnes and Nobles for them. We kept them and pulled them out. How do we avoid something like that in the future from happening, where we have perfectly brand new nooks that were working, and now we have tons of kids in the district who can easily use them, and then now they were going to be sold off to auction for I don't know how much, whether it's $5, $10, whatever, or sold to whoever. We were fortunate this time that we were able to get a trade from Barnes & Nobles where they actually did virtually a swap for brand new nooks that were current, but they were almost gone, right? So if I didn't stop it and pull the resolution, they were almost gone. So how do we avoid something like that from happening? Because not all the board members really dig into the fine details in terms of looking at all the equipment and seeing what it's all about. So how do we avoid that from happening?
So part of the issue with that auction that they started to, and then you alluded, is that they hadn't actually authorization from the board to dispose of the equipment yet. So there was some cross wires between getting rid of that equipment. So that auction needed to be stopped for all of the equipment, not just the nooks. So once upon a time, I'm sorry, am I here? So one of the things that we're very clear on is the review of that equipment, which we didn't have that prior to purchase. The nooks arrived in the district prior to it being authorized by any technology people. So that's something that we've subsequently put in place many years since. But at that time, if a principal or somebody wanted to order a piece of technology, they just ordered it. Whether they had a plan or how to implement it, stuff like that was a different scenario. And unfortunately, with technology, you do need a plan, and you need to figure out how this is going to work. So that was kind of the story with the nooks.
Well, I thought the nooks came to be here in the district, but now how did they end up on the list of things to be discarded?
Right.
That
So
were
they
in perfectly working condition.
Sorry, you need to step over. So they do need to be. They're not on this list, by the way. They're not part of this resolution.
Right. Because hopefully they were sold to Barnes or exchanged at Barnes and Nobles already.
They can't be until the board actually approves it. So we actually pulled them back because the board has. But I wanted to.
So why are we waiting for it? Why is it not on the resolution?
It's not on this list, quite frankly, because
not on this list. But why is it not on the resolution before the board right now? What are we waiting for to do the exchange with Barnes and Nobles to get the new nooks in the hands of children in the district, especially for the summer?
Right. So Barnes and Noble said that deal was a short window. It was like a 2-week window. It came, it went, and it's coming again. So we're in negotiation with Barnes and Noble for the next deal. The other thing that I want to put in front of the board, so everybody's very clear, is we are doing a cleaning. We are going into buildings. We are looking for equipment. We are looking for, and this is not the last resolution you're going to see, probably not even the last resolution this summer you're going to see, where we're looking to dispose of obsolete stuff. Our schools, unfortunately, over time, people take things, they hide them. There's old stuff that just, instead of getting rid of it, it sort of has been collecting dust in a closet somewhere. So we're in the process of going through and cleaning up, and part of beautifying the schools is getting rid of the junk.
Absolutely.
So that's part of the process that we're in right now. What we wanted to do today was start the process. This is not a complete list. We're still finding stuff. In fact, Mr. Police Chair reached out to me the day after we submitted this and said, I found more equipment. So there's going to be more stuff coming out. So I just wanted to
So some of the equipment that's apparent and obvious would be like the large tube televisions, right, that are like 10 feet deep.
Right, 10 feet deep, and some of them are really large.
Sure.
They're difficult.
So would you attest to say or verify that on this list is most of those that we're not going to find like doesn't them lying around in the open in hallways because you guys, did put a thorough list together?
Well, this is not a full list. I want to be very clear. This is part one of a several part series as we're going through. I just needed to start moving stuff out because as we collect stuff, we're running out of room.
Gotcha.
So I need to get rid of it, auction it off, and then do the next list. And we'll go.
Well, I agree, because a lot of this clutter is unsafely stored in corridors, exit corridors at Pennington, at Rebecca Turner, at Parker, at Benjamin Turner, in brand new bathrooms at Thornton, at Benjamin Turner as well. So I totally agree with the process and what we need to do. Just want to make sure that we don't end up throwing away or discarding equipment that could either be used by the library or by the students or in exchange fashion such as the books. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's the end of the discussion. Are we ready to vote on this resolution? Or is there any more questions? Mr. Resolution.
This is now 15.4, authorization to discard obsolete computer network equipment. It's been moved by Mr. Zamora and seconded by Ms. Saunders. Ready for a vote?
Motion.
Just call it out.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried.
There's one more about the printer and Xerox.
Correct. The last resolution on the agenda for the evening is the printer maintenance and supply contract added to the services of CBS Xerox. We need a motion and a second to open discussion.
Motion for discussion.
Second.
Trustee Zamora and Trustee Jaros.
So this resolution probably would be most appropriate for Mr. Silver. Now this contract, as I see it here, is for roughly, where is the price here? I'm sorry, that's just the budget balance. Hold on a second. Roughly a base charge of $10,380 a month, which brings us up to over $123,000-$3,000 per year. How does this not go out to bid? I know that Xerox is probably servicing or have supplied some of our printers right now. When is that contract over? And why didn't this go out to bid with such a large sum of money? The reason could be, I know I'm answering my own question because they're already here, they're already doing it, but it seems to lock us in at a time where, let's say for example, we could go out to bid and probably get lower prices. So right now, we're kind of held hostage. How do we know that we're not getting competitive pricing from CBS Xerox at this juncture?
So Mr. McGrath will speak to part of it, but this is through a Westchester County contract, bidded contract. And this is a renewal of that bid through the County of Westchester. Mr. McGrath will speak to the equipment itself.
Well, when you say it's through a bid with the County of Westchester, so basically if Westchester or a government entity has a bid out, and then in a particular entity, company, a vendor, has a low bid with a city government, we're allowed to use that low bid.
Yes, we
for our
piggyback.
district.
Those bids specifically permit piggybacking, and we are piggybacking on that bid.
Right. Though it permits it, it doesn't necessarily stop us from obtaining our own bid for probably competitive pricing.
It does not. And in terms of I'm not sure you're talking about the copy machines. So we replaced.
It says the maintenance of the printer and the supply contract.
Right. So there's two contracts we have with them. One is for the copiers, and one is for the supply part. And there is aid on part of that. So, Mr. McGrath,
If I can, Mr. Moore. So we have negotiated with Xerox about $10,000 off of the state contract price. So that's not quite 10%, but you get the idea that since we already had the Xerox copier contract with them, and they wanted this business, this was an easy negotiation. So we were able to shave a little bit off of the Westchester state contract or Westchester contract price. So that was kind of part of our negotiations to try and get a better price. Just so everybody's really clear what the contract does. This is for all toner for most of the printers that we have. There are certain models that they don't service, but about 90% of the printers that we have, this is serviced. So it's toner, it's drum kits, which are used for the big printers, and it's service. So anytime a printer breaks, They come and they fix it and they repair it, et cetera. And it's next day service. So if somebody says, hey, I ran out of toner, or I'm running low on toner, they pick up the phone, they call, they're there the next day. If somebody says, my printer doesn't work, they're there the next day. So it's an efficiency, and it certainly has made a big difference in terms of the running of the school district and the running of the classroom. So there's the value, both in discount we got and in actual service that's being delivered.
So let me ask you, so this is an annual contract that has to be renewed? And when is their original contract in terms of our, I guess, lease of the equipment, when is that over?
So the copier lease, I believe, is a 5-year contract. So this is year 2 of a 5-year contract.
So we have 3 years to go, so it would behoove us to probably renew with these guys based on their low bid, and probably shave some more or whatever, you guys can negotiate. I got it, I'm fine. Thank you.
I had a question, right? There's sort of some fax machines and not other fax machines?
So we have a couple of different models. We have mostly...
Before you answer, my real question is, why are we still using fax machines?
Thank you. All I can say is thank you. I agree with you. I agree. I don't have a good answer for that one, but thank you.
Okay.
Well, Mr. McDonough, as a point of interest, the State Education Department only accepts fax as a way of transmitting information to them for projects.
Way surprised by that. So, there you go, public. That's the reason we still have fax machines, to communicate with the state, which requires fax machines.
Okay, so is that the end of the discussion on that resolution?
Vote.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Moving to unfinished business. New business?
Under new business, Madam President, I'd like to poll the board and see if the board would be available. We only have one meeting scheduled for August, and I'd like to poll the board for availability on August 8th for a goal-setting session. And that will be the only item on our agenda, just for the purpose of reviewing our existing goals and hearing my recommendation for how those goals may be revised moving forward. I'd like to get this accomplished before convocation and before the administrator's retreat, so that we can develop our strategies consistent with what those goals will be.
Sure. What time would that be?
We talked about like a regular meeting, 6:30 on the 8th. It's a Tuesday.
That works for me.
I'm unavailable.
I probably will not be available either.
Stan said he's not available?
This is
We should really try and find a day for everybody.
We need the new board members.
It's hoping to be
Yeah.
midday, but Tuesday. I might be going to Montreal.
Trustee Russo won't be available, so we need to reschedule it.
Is there another day that works better for everybody, or should I just send you some?
Yeah, you can send some dates.
Okay.
I have to look at that. I have to ask the boss.
Okay. Will do.
She's gone.
It's just that day that week, wasn't it?
Well, it's from the 8th through, I think, the 12th or something. It's not that long, but.
All right, so that's it for new business. Mr. Silver, would you want to discuss the Pennington issue?
It's hot.
Is that why it's not working?
Somebody fax us the rest of the agenda.
We talked about the field already. So motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.